Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Animal Pack YouTube channel. You're in the Jewett kitchen for another cooking episode. Today, we're gonna make a lasagna. Why lasagna? Well, it's February, and you know what February means? It's Valentine's Day. So I thought, what a better way to make a home-cooked meal for your significant other, and Italian food comes to mind. So we're gonna do a lasagna. And lasagna can be a great way to use a food where you can match your macros. So if you're worried about taking someone out on a date and you're gonna have to maybe eat a meal that's gonna be super high in fat, or you wanna stay on track, another idea, cook a romantic meal at home, make it fit your macros, and you'll also just woo your significant spouse by having this like home-cooked lasagna meal that she probably thought you could never do. So let's make lasagna. I have all my ingredients laid out here, and I try to do some easy ways for us to make this lasagna. The thing that I looked at first was the macros. So for my wife, Renee, I know what her macros are, I know what my macros are. So I was looking for around 100 grams of carbs, 50 protein, and 20 grams of fat for my portion. Hers is nearly like exactly half of mine. So 50 carbs, around 25-30 protein and 10 fat. So that makes it really easy on me to where I can make a batch. She'll have a third of it and I'll have the other 2/3. So total macro goal for the meal was 160 carb, about 100 protein, and 30 fat. So that's my numbers that I'm working with to put into my one dish. And the dish that I'm gonna use is it's a 9x5. You don't have to use a 9x5. You could use a wider baking pan. It just comes down to the depth that you want to make it. So I wanted to make like a thicker lasagna, so I'm using a bit more depth to this one. So starting with the main macro numbers is kind of give you an idea of the foods that I want to be selecting to meet those macros. So with lasagna, the big issue is fat. You can add all these cheeses in, you can really raise the fat up. So thinking about keeping it low fat would be like your first food items to select to manage the fat content. So what I did fat-wise, the things you'll need for your lasagna are some cheese. So I have a fat-free mozzarella that I'm using. It's 0 fat, just protein in it, a little bit of carb. Then I also had a pizza blend. I just had it in the fridge, but this is a part skim cheese, so it still has some fat because I can't have some fat in the meal. The other fat source you'll need is a ricotta cheese, and you can get part skim ricotta, you can get low fat ricotta. Low fat ricotta is like 3 grams of fat for every quarter cup. The part skim one was double that. Then there's like a whole milk ricotta as well. So depending on how much fat you're allowed in your macros is going to depend on what level, if you need part skim cheese or like a whole fat milk cheese. Those are your main fat sources. I am going to use 1 egg though to help bind the ricotta and the cheeses and some of the other things together. So you're adding like another 5 grams of fat with your egg source. So I have those ingredients selected to keep fats low. The main contributor for carbohydrates is of course our noodles. So I got an oven ready noodle, so you don't have to boil them. You can just put them into your dish. They'll cook as you're baking the lasagna, so it makes it really, really easy. A hack that I saw that I have not tried is you can just soak your noodles in hot water and they'll get more pliable and a lot easier to lay into your baking pan. For sauce, just look through your sauce aisle, just kind of keep in mind what you're looking for macros. If you're looking for low carb, find a sauce where they don't add a lot of sugar in. If you're okay with some extra fats, you could use one that has a higher fats. The sauce that I'm using, it's just a garlic and herb, but it is pretty low fat. It's 1 gram of fat for every half cup. Other things you'll need, have Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna use it just more like a topping, not putting like a bunch of Parmesan into the actual lasagna itself. I also have like a Mediterranean, just herb type seasoning, or like an Italian seasoning would work good. And some garlic. So I minced 2 cloves of garlic. Now for protein. So with protein, your protein net can actually with lasagna get really, really high very quickly because of all the cheeses you're using. You might max out your protein amount just through the cheese. I have allotted 2 ounces of chicken into this, which gets me really close to like that 100 grams of total protein for the dish. That covers all the ingredients. Other things that you might want to add in, say you're not able to use a lot of cheese and you need to make a larger volume for your layers, you could add in some spinach to your mix. You could also add mushrooms in just to increase the volume. You could probably even add in like some type of zucchini as well to give like an extra like veggie layer into your lasagna in case you don't get a lot of cheese in that sense. For protein, you might, like I said, get really high. You could use, I'm using a shredded chicken because the shredded chicken will add some extra volume versus just some pieces. Ground turkey could be another option. Or if you have the allotment for fats, you could use just like a ground beef. So that's why you could move around your macros. And basically how I do this is I find a recipe that's maybe like a low-fat recipe where I have an idea of the ingredients I use. I portion out, I write down each ingredient. So, okay, I need a cup of this type of cheese, a cup of this one, and I'll write the macros next to it and I'll total them up. And that's the way how I start like manipulating a recipe for my macro content. So what I started adding up, I was like, oh man, I'm way over in fats. Let me drop down on my pizza blend cheese and I can add in more of my fat-free cheese. So just to give you an idea of how I manipulate the macros. Now, if you are making a lasagna in a larger portion and it's not going to be exact, one thing you can do is weigh your container first before you put anything in it. Then you can weigh your container after you baked your lasagna. That will give you a total weight of your lasagna. And then you can portion it out and you'll know, like, all right, for my 600 gram lasagna, you'll know your total macro number because you already had that calculated. Then you can divide it out into portions. You can weigh out your portions and you know exactly for that portion amount what your macros would be. So, enough about macros and counting. Again, I have it all listed below in the description. So if you want to see the macros I used for each food portion and the total macros for the dish, look below. It's all there for you along with these recipe instructions. But let's get to making some lasagna. So our first step in making our lasagna is going to be, basically the whole time we're going to be layering. And we're going to be repeating these layers for as many times as you want. For what I'm planning to do is to do 3 layers. So basically we'll have put a layer of sauce, a noodle layer, a ricotta layer, sauce, noodle, ricotta, sauce, noodle, and we'll keep repeating that process until we get your lasagna as thick as you want it to be. We need to mix our ricotta mixture. And so what we're going to need first will be our ricotta, our garlic, our egg, our Italian seasoning, and spinach. So we're going to combine this all into a bowl, and that's going to be one of our layers that we use for making the lasagna. So I have one of my layers done. Now what I want to do is you can just combine your cheeses. I measured them out separately for macro matching purposes, but you can combine them because that's how we're going to use them into the dish. And just mix them a little bit. Alright, so that's another one of our layers. And the tomato sauce and the chicken, I'm going to leave them separately because my first layer that I do will just be sauce only. Then it'll be noodle, ricotta, cheese, then sauce and chicken, then another noodle. So let's start with our first layer. We're going to add in sauce to the bottom of the baking dish and then noodle. What I went ahead and did was mix my chicken in with the sauce for the rest of the layers. Just makes it easier to spread. So once you have one layer done, which just a reminder, your first layer is sauce, noodle, ricotta mixture. We're doing mozzarella cheese, then sauce chicken, then your next layer. So it's now noodle again, And these, if you need to fit them special in your pan, you can break them off a little bit. If they don't go all the way into your pan, don't worry about that either. These will expand too. So go a noodle. Next, ricotta mixture. And what I did, like just eyeballing, is I know I need 3 portions out of this, so I'm just scooping out about a third and putting it onto my noodles. So spread out the ricotta mixture. All right, so once you have your layers done, we're gonna finish off the very top layer. Your top layer is gonna be your last 2 lasagna noodles, so we'll just place those on top, and then we're gonna cover it with, need a little bit of tomato sauce left over, layer tomato sauce, and then keep some cheese left over, and we're just gonna sprinkle some cheese on top. That will be ready for the oven then, and we're gonna put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes, covered in foil. And then that will be it, guys. So I cover my lasagna with foil. Make sure you get a really tight seal with your foil. Those noodles that just bake in the oven that you don't have to boil first, you want to make sure you get a good seal so they can cook well. I said 45 minutes on the cook time because then we'll remove the foil for 10 minutes and let the top brown. You don't have to do that. If you do like a little bit gooier, more melted top and you don't want that crisp top, you can just let it go for another 10 minutes with the foil covered. So 45, 55 minutes, that's what you're looking for your cook time. What you should see with your foil removed is like the noodles will start to kind of crinkle up, and that's when you should know that your lasagna is completely done. So we'll stick this in the oven for 45 minutes. I'm gonna take the foil off and let it go for another 10 and brown up. Our 45-minute timer went off. I'm going to check our lasagna and also take off our foil. So I'll show you guys this. So you see how our noodles are starting to get that crinkled look to them. So that's what you're looking for when your lasagna is done. Those ready to bake noodles, they'll puff up because they haven't been hydrated with water yet, like when you boil a noodle. So we'll put it back in for 10 minutes, brown the top. Just keep an eye on it. You're just looking for that cheese to kind of bubble and brown a little bit, and then we'll pull it out and it'll be ready. All right, so our 10 minutes is up. Browned our lasagna, let's take it out, see how it looks. All right, so I don't have a lot of cheese on top of mine, but I can see like the cheese got a little bit browned. And that's perfect, that's just how I want it. So I'm gonna cut out my portion, Renee's portion. Like I said earlier in the video, I eat about 2/3 of this and she'll eat about a third. So I'm gonna eyeball it. You don't have to eyeball if you want to be really exact. Like I said, you could have weighed your container, weigh your lasagna now, and you'll know what the total weight is for your macros, and you can weigh out your portions that way. All right guys, I plated up our lasagna, so I have my big portion of lasagna, and I have my wife Renee's portion of lasagna. And so now this would be a great way that you can make a macro match meal for your loved one and do it for Valentine's Day. You could top it with a little bit of parsley if you want to give it that extra touch. Remember guys, there's lots of ways that you can manipulate this recipe to fit within carbohydrates or your fats or your protein and make it work to where you're not going to go eat a really heavy meal and go way over your calories. It's something that you can do at home, even if bring your other person in and help you make it and have fun doing it. So for the recipe and all the instructions, look below in the description. I have everything listed out for you guys. along with the macros along. So now let's just taste it and see how it turned out. It's really good. So don't worry guys, your loved one will be happy with your choice of your lasagna. I will say, like, with those ready to bake noodles, they do come up a little bit more al dente. So they do have a little bit more of a crispier, tougher texture to them than if you were to bake the noodles ahead of time. So that's something to consider. If you want like a softer lasagna, you might use the noodles that you do bake ahead. But anyway guys, talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. Leave any questions, comments below, or any other recipe ideas you'd like to see me do some macros with. Talk to you next time.